In 2023, over 78% of workers are disengaged at their job. So today I wanted to take some time to discuss the American workforce and why so many people feel like they're just working for the paycheck. But before we get started, if you appreciate videos like this one where I share my thoughts about the economy, money, and investing, it would help out tremendously if you hit that like button or subscribe to my channel. That way you don't miss out on any new videos. And if you know someone who might enjoy my content, please share with them. It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you guys so much. All right, so there was a study conducted by Microsoft in 2023 called The Next Great Wave of American Dreams. In this study, they asked workers about how they felt about their jobs and what they would really rather be doing. This study found that the majority of workers, 78%, felt unfulfilled at work. And when given the opportunity, 41% said they would leave their job and pursue their own business. When thinking about the reasons why so many Americans feel stuck in a dead-end job, there are three primary reasons. One is lack of opportunities for growth. Two is lack of fulfillment in their day-to-day work. And three is lack of trust in leadership. Now, each of these problems can show up independently of one another, but oftentimes they all go hand in hand. For example, let's say you start working for a company right out of college. You're excited to apply your classroom knowledge into the real world. You're eager to prove yourself and make a difference within the organization. But after several months of being at the company, you find that your responsibilities are just making coffee, filing documents, and answering phone. After getting passed over for promotions and pay raises, you begin to lose motivation. At this point, the work you do no longer fulfills you, and you find yourself not trusting leadership because they have failed to recognize your skills and expertise. When it comes to the topic of employee satisfaction, it's important to distinguish between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is when you're motivated by outside forces. Intrinsic motivation is when you're motivated because you love what you do. For example, if you were to ask a 10-year-old kid why they go to school, they would probably say, because I want to learn. Now, if you were to ask their parents why they send them to school, they would probably say, because we want them to get a good job and make lots of money. As we grow older, we lose our intrinsic motivation. Instead, we focus on extrinsic motivation. We go to work because we have to make money to survive. We stay at our job because of the money, even though deep down inside we're unfulfilled and unhappy. So here are some numbers to consider. In 2022, the average worker spent more than 1,300 hours at work. That's 1/3 of the entire year. So if you hate going to work, that's a lot of time to waste. Now, let's say you earn $50,000 per year. If you quit your job to follow your dreams, you could potentially double your income to $100,000 per year. Even if you cut your income in half, that still means that you have 1,300 hours worth of time. Time is our most valuable asset. There's only 24 hours in every day. And the one thing we cannot get back is time. I want you to think about how much value you could create in 1,300 hours. What inventions could you come up with? How many meals could you cook for loved ones? How many memories could you make? I recently watched an interview with Mr. Beast, and during the interview, he was asked whether he was happy being famous or would he rather live a normal life. He responded by saying that he loves what he does, which shows that he has intrinsic motivation. But if he had to choose between living his normal life or continuing to be famous, he said he would choose to be normal because he doesn't want to work 24/7 until he dies. Think about that for a second. Here's this 25-year-old kid who already made millions of dollars from YouTube, but he feels like he is still not doing enough, because the amount of work he does unalign with his definition of success. I remember reading a book a few years ago called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. In this book, David talks about something called extreme ownership. He says, regardless of your situation, you should always take 100% responsibility. But sometimes there are situations where it's not entirely your fault. For example, let's say you're working at a gas station making minimum wage. It's not your fault that you're stuck in a dead-end job making low wages. But if you refuse to take ownership and control of the situation, then you will always be stuck there. If you want to change your situation, you need to take extreme ownership and do whatever it takes to get out. The same goes for quitting your job. Just because you don't like your job doesn't mean you should quit. But if you want to quit, you need to take extreme ownership and understand that there are consequences to your decision. When you take extreme ownership, you no longer blame others for your failures or shortcomings. Instead, you look inwards and try to figure out how you can improve. Now, here's the problem with most people. They think about quitting their job to pursue their dreams, but they never actually do it. Why is that? Well, the reason is simple. They're scared. They're scared to take the risk and do something new. Instead, they play it safe and stick with what they know. There are two types of risks that people are afraid of taking. The first type of risk is financial. This is when you have bills and expenses to pay, so you feel like you don't have a choice other than to keep working. The second type of risk is opportunity. This is when you feel like you're giving up on the chance to get ahead in life. Let me explain. Let's say you graduated from university with $100,000 of student loan debt. A lot of people are also afraid to take the opportunity risk. A lot of people feel like they're wasting time at their job and they don't want to admit it to themselves. Quitting your job can be terrifying, but you shouldn't let fear stop you from pursuing your goals. You only get one shot at life, so don't waste it working a job that you hate. Take the risk, pursue your dream. Even if you fail, at least you'll have the satisfaction of knowing that you took the risk and did everything you could. Here's a quote that I read in a book that I thought was really insightful. The trick is in what one man calls courage, another calls recklessness. In other words, doing the right thing can sometimes be viewed as reckless. And that's okay. The most important thing is to do what you feel is right. Don't worry about what other people think. So here's what I want you to do. Write down 3 things that you want to accomplish in your life. Then write down the steps that you need to take to accomplish those goals. Finally, write down the date that you want to accomplish those goals by. Having a deadline will give you a sense of urgency and motivate you to take action. Also, don't be afraid to ask for help. There are people in your life that care about you and want to see you succeed. So don't be afraid to reach out to them. If you enjoyed this video, check out this next video where I talk about 5 books that changed the way I think. Thank you guys for watching. And if you learned something from this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in making money from the stock market, subscribe to my channel. I post weekly videos about my investment strategy. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, take care.